So Warwick is going to be up next.
So Annette's going to share my slides for me, which is a wonderful asset to have the skill set. Oh, look at that. Thank you, Annette. So this is the logo of the CNG Action Group that you can see there, and we developed that as part of our original branding to get the Action Group up and away. But my slides, if Annette just moves on to my slides. So I just wanted to talk about how the Action Group works, I guess, and what we've learnt. And if we sort of come back to resilient communities and resilient individuals, so reflecting on the resilient communities, the resilience of the community and individuals is interconnected with the health and the well-being of our environment. Some say this is a Maori world view, which may well be true, but I also think it's the view of all of our land custodians and the managers, and essentially it's just common sense. The farm systems and land use in 2022 is vastly different than what it was in the 1920s, 1930s, 50s, 70s, or the 2000s. And as land managers, we have adapted to the vagaries of the weather, and we now refer to that as climate change, for over 150 years. And some of our past and present efforts have been in vain, but mostly they have enabled us to get to where we are today and relatively strong, resilient communities. When we kicked off the Action Group in 2015, we knew we needed to change behaviour. Them and us with the regulatory bodies wasn't working. Farmers had this sort of view that it was the regulatory body's job. The regulatory bodies probably had a view that the farmers weren't doing their job. And essentially the knowledge of the past generations was fast being lost, and the naivety of the risk was permeating the current generation. So if we move along, thank you. So we reflect on the pest plant itself and what is a pest plant. And I just like to, I like this analogy really. A weed is a plant growing in the wrong place. A pest plant is a plant that we don't want anywhere. Pest plants are usually highly invasive. They often come with animal welfare issues and nearly always have a negative environmental and economic impact. They threaten the biodiversity and the economic viability of land and water bodies and the industries associated. Now, I fundamentally or firmly believe that once all the dust is settled with respect to all the environmental regulation changes that landowners are currently faced with, that out of it will emerge Aotearoa, New Zealand's premier environmental marker, and that is freshwater quality. And that alone means that a well-managed biodiversity space, including integrated sheep, cattle and deer farming systems for our hill and high country, is an absolute. The threat that CNG poses to that future means that we must take action to prevent that spread and push back against the incursion. So I ask these questions in the next slide. Behaviour change and stopping the spread. We need relevant information to enable the change. And we ask these questions: is the change possible? And the answer is yes. Is the change plausible? And do we have the resources in the community and the community buy-in? And the answer again is yes. And is the change preferable? And hell yes it is. If we can stop the spread, we can then push back. And the next slide, we talk about We've talked about resilient communities. Now we'll talk about resilient individuals within those communities. If the behaviour change to stop the spread is possible, plausible, and preferable, as per the last slide, then there are roles for individuals and the collective. We need to identify the local capability and the capacity. We need champions. Now, we've been very fortunate to have Annette working with us from the get-go. Her background in farm systems, production research and education, and her drive have been fundamental to any success that we've had. And while he is not the only one out there pushing back at considerable personal expense, Tim has emerged as the face of the "you can win," but in order to do so, you have to try. And that's what we need. We need champions that we can point to and say, you do make a difference. So thank you, you two specifically, but there are many others. So moving along, one of the key first principles that we had to deal with as an action group was to pick up on that identified spread risk that the biosecurity team at the local council had, and they communicated it, but it wasn't being heard. So when you break it down, and there are a number of points, you know, these are four of the key ones. I think there's a couple more that I've probably forgotten off the top of my head, but when you look at that spread risk, it is people who are responsible. Good people eliminate the risk by undertaking best practice, but ultimately people doing things is where spread risk happens. Often we blame everything else but ourselves. When we identify that we are the issue, we can make change. Again, can we make change? And yes, we can. So moving along, the CNG Action Group was formed in 2015. Fundamentally, its role is education and awareness. It's stepped that up over time, and it's also an ongoing process because there's a new entrants into the farm ownership and management space and vineyard ownership management space, and that education awareness has to be an ongoing process. Early on, we created a 30-year strategy and a 3-year action plan, which we roll over each year and revisit. Marlborough District Council provided additional funding into the biosecurity team because of the community buy-in. We have undertaken newsletters on an annual basis for must be 8 years now. Those newsletters are always well received. They're received in the Hawke's Bay, across Marlborough and in Canterbury. They're also a resource for other regional councils, biosecurity teams. We have been able to access Marlborough Research Centre funding because, again, we're an organised entity. We've undertaken workshops, a number of field days. MPI and the Sustainable Farming Fund Earthquake Recovery Biosecurity Project, which was a 3-year project with New Zealand Landcare Trust, was possible because we were an organised entity. The Marlborough District Council Environment Plan has new rules that were developed with and alongside the Action Group. We have undertaken advocacy in the cropping on slopes and the national policy statements on fresh water consultation with central government. We have been included in part of an MPI on-farm biosecurity project, which is a nationwide long-term look at biosecurity on farm. That's happened because we have been active, we've been engaged, and we've been seen to be making a difference. We have been able to get representation on the MPI's National CNG Coordination Group alongside the regional biosecurity officials. Just like to sort of finish with couple of things on this, and that is that the corporate engagement and the development of standard operating procedures and induction of staff has been extremely excellent. They have really taken on board the messages that we've sent out. In general, the viticulture and sheep and beef sector engagement has been first class, but there is always more work we can do. And my final slide is about what is the future. CNG isn't going to go away anytime soon. We need new ideas and new people involved. Catchment groups are becoming a bit of a trend in community activity. They are succeeding in getting community buy-in. They are a bit different to action groups like CNG Action Group or that potentially a Narcella group. But action groups like CNG and Narcella do have roles within and across catchment groups. There are roles for all of the community in both. The biological control and the work that Sienna has undertaken and Alana have undertaken can be a game changer and a step change in that game. We need an organised entity or organised groups to make that possible. Artificial intelligence, pest plant signatures, drone and satellite mapping of infestations, and robotic control is coming. It's not quite here yet, but it is coming, and I believe we will see it. So I'd just like to close by asking, how do you see the action group in 2023 and 2025? Is it as it is? Is it a wider biosecurity group, including Narcella tussock and other dryland invasive species? And how do you see it meshing with catchment groups? So thank you. Any questions?
Okay, are there any questions for Warwick?
Sure, I'd like to ask Warwick. You see it, I think your last few comments were really pertinent, because I think the only way forward is for us to combine all these groups into one group, whether it's either a catchment group that oversees the whole lot, or whether it's probably the catchment group, to be honest. But obviously there's nothing for Narcella at the moment, so I'm very keen to be involved, to get that involved, either under your wing or under the catchment group wing, which I think, and I don't think anybody's here from the catchment group. I can't see all the names, but Flaxborn group. But I'm very keen that, you know, we need to discuss that further, because to me we can have too many groups, and I think we need one overarching group. Obviously the district council is you know, overseeing it all, but you know, they can't do everything. I mean, up north here we have the same issues, and it's definitely the communities that have taken over. So let's get behind the groups like your group that's doing it, and expand it to cover Narcella as well, any other dryland invasive species as well. Thank you.